A highly classified vault deep inside the Pentagon held 7,000 pages of explosive secrets that could bring down the entire American presidency. But the trusted defense intellectual who helped write them was currently smuggling them out under his coat. For years, the public had been told a carefully crafted story about a necessary war to defend democracy in Southeast Asia. But inside these top-secret files lay a dark, undeniable truth. For successive administrations had systematically lied about their prospects, knowing they were losing while sending thousands of young men to their deaths. How did a brilliant, hawkish insider decide to risk a lifetime in federal prison to expose this ultimate betrayal? This is not just a story of political intrigue. It is the chronicle of how the deepest secrets of the Vietnam War were dragged into the light, forever shattering the bond of trust between a government and its people. The man at the center of this storm was Daniel Ellsberg. In the mid-1960s, Ellsberg was the ultimate Washington insider, a man of unquestionable loyalty and immense intellectual pedigree. He was a brilliant, Harvard-trained economist, a former Marine Corps officer, and an ardent cold warrior who worked at the highest levels of the Pentagon and the RAND Corporation, a prestigious defense think tank. He had even spent 2 years on the ground in Vietnam, observing the pacification programs firsthand. But what he witnessed in the jungles and villages of Vietnam did not match the glowing, optimistic reports being delivered by military commanders in Saigon or politicians in Washington. He saw a brutal, stalemated conflict where American soldiers were dying for a cause that seemed increasingly undefined, corrupt, and unattainable. He saw South Vietnamese governments rise and fall in a cycle of corruption and instability, completely detached from the needs of their own people. Most disturbingly, he saw that the official optimism broadcast to the public was a carefully constructed illusion. Back in Washington, the disconnect between public rhetoric and private reality was reaching a breaking point. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, the chief architect of the war, was himself harboring deep, agonizing doubts. In 1967, McNamara secretly ordered a comprehensive, top-secret study of U.S. decision-making in Vietnam from 1945 to the present. He wanted an objective, encyclopedic record of how the United States had become so deeply ensnared in Southeast Asia. He did not tell President Lyndon B. Johnson about the project, knowing the president would likely shut it down. This massive research task was assigned to a team of 36 military officers, historians, and defense analysts. Among them was Daniel Ellsberg. When Ellsberg began reading the classified documents, he was chilled by what he found. The secret study, which would eventually grow to 47 volumes, containing 2.5 million words, revealed a history of systematic deception spanning 4 presidential administrations. It showed that the United States had not stumbled blindly into Vietnam, as many defenders of the war claimed. Instead, it had made a series of calculated, deliberate choices to escalate the conflict, even when internal intelligence reports warned that the chances of success were minimal. The documents proved that the deception began as early as the Truman administration. After World War II, the United States chose to ignore the Vietnamese desire for independence, choosing instead to secretly fund, support the French colonial empire's efforts to reclaim its lost territory. This was done under the banner of containing communism, but the papers revealed that policymakers knew they were opposing a deeply rooted nationalist movement, led by Ho Chi Minh. By 1954, the United States was financing 80% of the French war effort, directly participating in a colonial war under the guise of geopolitical strategy. When the French were defeated at Dien Bien Phu in 1954, the Eisenhower administration stepped in to fill the vacuum. The Pentagon Papers showed that the United States actively worked to sabotage the scheduled 956 nationwide elections in Vietnam, which had been mandated by the Geneva Accords. Why? Because American intelligence reports admitted that Ho Chi Minh would have won a free and fair election by an overwhelming landslide, potentially up to 80% of the vote. To prevent this, Washington helped install No Diem in the South and backed his refusal to hold the friend elections, effectively partitioning the country and setting the stage for a civil war. Under President John F. Kennedy, the commitment grew deeper and more covert. The classified files detailed how the Kennedy administration secretly authorized sabotage missions against North Vietnam and expanded the number of American military advisors from several hundred to over 16,000. Most shockingly, the documents revealed that the United States was deeply complicit in the November 1963 military coup that resulted in the assassination of No Diem. While public officials expressed shock at Diem's death, the secret record showed that American diplomats had given the green light to the plotting generals, realizing too late that Diem's removal would only create a political vacuum that would drag the United States even deeper into the quagmire. The deception reached its peak under President Lyndon B. Johnson. The Pentagon Papers exposed how the Johnson administration systematically lied to both Congress and the part of the American public to justify a massive escalation of the war. The most egregious example was the Gulf of Tonkin incident in August 1964. On August 2nd, North Vietnamese patrol boats clashed with the destroyer USS Maddox, which was conducting electronic espionage. 2 days later, on August 4th, the Pentagon claimed that a second, unprovoked attack had occurred against the Maddox and another destroyer, the USS Turner Joy. Johnson used this alleged second attack to secure the Gulf of Tonkin resolution from Congress, which gave him a blank check to wage war in Southeast Asia without a formal declaration. But the secret documents revealed that the administration knew the second attack almost certainly never happened. Navy commanders on the scene had sent urgent cables, expressing doubts about the radar contacts and sonar readings, warning that freak weather and overeager sonar operators were likely responsible. Yet, Johnson suppressed these doubts, rushed to national television to announce retaliatory airstrikes, and pushed the resolution through Congress. Even more damningly, the papers showed that the administration had drafted the resolution months before the incident ever occurred, simply waiting for a suitable pretext to introduce it. Furthermore, during the 1964 presidential campaign, Johnson ran as the peace candidate, famously promising that he would not send American boys to do the job that Asian boys should be doing for themselves. But the Pentagon Papers proved that even as he made those promises, his administration was already planning a massive bombing campaign against North Vietnam and the jobless deployment of hundreds of thousands of ground troops. The decision to escalate had already been made. The public was merely kept in the dark until after the election was won. For Daniel Ellsberg, reading these documents was an agonizing revelation. He realized that the war was not a tragic mistake or a series of miscalculations. It was a continuous, deliberate conspiracy to mislead the American people in order to protect the political fortunes of the men in power. He knew he could no longer remain a silent accomplice to a war that was costing hundreds of lives every single week. He knew he had to act, regardless of the personal cost. In the fall of 1969, Daniel Ellsberg decided to take a step that would change his life forever and alter the course of American history. He resolved to steal the Pentagon Papers. Using his high security clearance at the Rand Corporation, he began smuggling volumes of the study out of the office in his briefcase. Each night, he took the documents to a small advertising agency owned by his friend Anthony Russo, who had access to a photocopying machine. together with Russo and Ellsberg's children, Robert and Mary, who helped peel off the top secret headers from the pages. They spent hours copying the massive manuscript. Process was slow, tedious, and fraught with danger. The Xerox machine was loud, prone to jamming, and smelled of hot toner, and the threat of FBI detection was a constant shadow. If caught, Ellsberg faced decades in federal prison for espionage. Yet, he persisted, driven by the belief that if the American people saw the truth, they would demand an end to the war. Once the copying was complete, Ellsberg spent more than a year trying to find a way to release the information safely and legally. He approached several anti-war senators, including William Fulbright and George McGovern, hoping they would use their congressional privilege to enter the documents into the public record. But the politicians, fearing the political backlash and legal repercussions, refused to act. Realizing that the political establishment would not help him, Ellsberg turned to the free press. In early 1971, he contacted Neil Sheehan, a reporter for the New York Times, who had reported extensively from Vietnam. Sheehan recognized the monumental importance of the documents. The Times set up a secret operation in a suite at the Hilton Hotel in New York, where a team of editors and writers worked under intense security, surrounded by armed guards and stacks of paper to verify and analyze the documents. On Sunday, June 13, 1971, the New York Times published the first installment of the 79 by W. Pentagon Papers on its front page. The headline was understated, but the impact was explosive. The Nixon administration, though initially pleased that the documents exposed the lies of previous Democratic administrations, quickly realized the dangerous precedent this set. If the press could publish the government's deepest secrets, no administration was safe. Attorney General John Mitchell sent a telegram to the Times, warning that further publication would cause irreparable injury to the defense interests of the United States, and demanding they cease publication immediately. The Times refused. The refusal of the New York Times to back down set off a historic constitutional crisis. The Nixon administration did something unprecedented in American history. It obtained a federal court injunction ordering the newspaper to halt publication of the series. It was the first time the United States government had used prior restraint to censor a newspaper on national security grounds. But the government could not stop the truth from spreading. While the New York Times was silenced by the court order, Daniel Ellsberg was already executing a brilliant backup plan. He began leaking portions of the papers to other major newspapers across the country. First, the Washington Post began publishing, only to be hit with an injunction as well. Then, the Boston Globe, the Chicago Sun-Times, and over a dozen other papers stepped forward, creating a cascade of leaks that the Justice Department could not control. It was a powerful, unprecedented demonstration of journalistic solidarity. The battle rushed to the United States Supreme Court. On June 30th, 1971, in a landmark 6-3 decision in New York Times Company versus United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the government had failed to meet the heavy burden of showing justification for prior restraint. The newspapers were free to publish. Justice Hugo Black wrote a stinging opinion, stating that the press was protected so that it could bear the secrets of government and inform the people. The press, he argued, was meant to serve the governed, not the governors. While the nation celebrated the victory for free speech, the Nixon administration launched a ruthless campaign of retaliation against Daniel Ellsberg, who had surrendered to federal authorities in Boston. Crowds gathered to cheer him as a hero, but the government viewed him as a traitor. He was indicted on 15 felony charges under the Espionage Act, facing a potential sentence of 115 years in prison. To ensure his conviction, the White House established a secret, illegal unit known as the Plumbers. In September 1971, members of this unit broke into the Beverly Hills office of Ellsberg's psychiatrist, seeking confidential records they could use to blackmail and discredit him. This illegal break-in, combined with the discovery that the government had wiretapped Ellsberg without a warrant and that the demon-aid trial judge had been offered the directorship of the FBI by the administration, ultimately backfired. In May 1973, citing gross governmental misconduct, the federal judge dismissed all charges against Ellsberg. The publication of the Pentagon Papers was a watershed moment in modern history, leaving a profound and permanent legacy. For the American public, the revelations shattered the long-standing assumption that their leaders acted with basic honesty in matters of war and peace. The term credibility gap, which had emerged during the Johnson administration, became a permanent fixture of the WBBD American political lexicon. The papers proved that the government had systematically lied to protect itself from domestic political embarrassment, prioritizing political survival over the lives of thousands of soldiers and millions of Vietnamese civilians. The documents also shed a harsh, illuminating light on the nature of American foreign policy during the Cold War. They revealed a deeply flawed decision-making process driven by ideological rigidity, bureaucratic inertia, and a profound ignorance of Vietnamese history and culture. American policymakers had viewed Vietnam not as a nation struggling for independence with a rich history of resisting foreign intervention, but merely as a square on a global geopolitical chessboard. By ignoring the nationalist aspirations of the Vietnamese people and relying on military force to prop up an unpopular, unstable regime, Washington had committed itself to an unwinnable conflict. Furthermore, the papers exposed that the military leadership knew programs like the Strategic Hamlet Initiative and various pacification campaigns were failing on the ground, yet they continued to report success to keep the funding flowing. The fallout from the Pentagon Papers also directly contributed to the downfall of the Nixon presidency. The illegal activities of the White House plumbers, which began with the break-in at Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office, expanded into the Watergate break-in, subsequent cover-up. The paranoia and lawlessness exposed by the leak of the papers set off a chain reaction that ultimately forced Richard Nixon to resign in disgrace in 1974. In Vietnam, the papers confirmed what many had long suspected, that the United States was never truly committed to the self-determination of the Vietnamese people, but was instead using their country as a laboratory for counterinsurgency and a buffer against geopolitical rivals. The human cost of this prolonged deception was staggering, resulting in over 58,000 American deaths and millions of Vietnamese casualties. The lesson of the Pentagon Papers is clear. A democratic government cannot wage a successful war based on a foundation of lies, and the preservation of national security must never be used as a shield to protect leaders from accountability. The echoes of the Pentagon Papers continue to reverberate in the 21st century, proving that the struggle between state secrecy and public accountability is far from over. The tension between government secrecy and the public's right to know remains one of the defining struggles of modern democracy. From the leaks of Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning to the ongoing debates over government surveillance and military interventions in the Middle East, we continue to grapple with the very same issues that Daniel Ellsberg exposed 50 years ago. The tools of whistleblowing have changed from slow, noisy Xerox machines to high-speed digital thumb drives and encrypted networks. But the government's aggressive response remains exactly the same. The Espionage Act of 1917, the very law used to prosecute Ellsberg, remains the primary weapon used by the Butter state to silence modern whistleblowers, raising profound questions about whether a law designed during World War I is appropriate for regulating transparency in the modern era. Until his death in 2023, Ellsberg remained an active voice, championing the rights of whistleblowers and warning against the dangers of unchecked executive power. This ongoing conflict forces us to confront a difficult ethical question. When a government systematically lies to its citizens, does a patriotic citizen have a moral obligation to break the law? To reveal the truth? The story of the Pentagon Papers reminds us that vigilance is the price of liberty, and that citizens must always question the official narratives presented by those in power. Understanding this history is crucial because it allows us to see the patterns of the past repeating in our own time. If you want to dive deeper into the hidden histories, the secret archives, and the untold stories that shaped Vietnam and the world, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We are committed to bringing you rigorous, narrative-driven history that challenges assumptions and uncovers the truth. Share this video with others who want to understand how the secrets of the past continue to influence our present. And we want to hear from you. Do you view Daniel Ellsberg as a heroic whistleblower who acted in the highest traditions of patriotism, or did his unauthorized release of classified documents cross a line that threatened national security? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and thank you for watching.